You probably already know that the victim mentality is an unhealthy place to live from. But if you take the time to decode it, you'll see that what's really running it is unresolved, overwhelming experiences, and at the core, it's pain. Trying to shift yourself or someone else from a victim state into a powerful or responsible one without first giving space for the anger, the resentment, and especially the pain that's underneath it all usually doesn't work. In fact, it can end up being harmful. What happens is it creates this conflicted internal state where one part of you feels like you should be powerful and forgiving, while another part of you is still deeply hurting and resentful. And when we make that resentment or anger or even the unforgiveness wrong, we just further split ourselves within, creating a deeper sense of internal conflict, which reduces our sense of aliveness and freedom and certainly love for self and others. Now, I've made this mistake with people I love. I've tried to bring them into a powerful state just because I had reached one myself, and I really enjoyed being in that state. What I learned the hard way was that doing that actually creates more inner conflict and conflict with the people that I love. And when I defended or justified my approach, it only made the distance between us even worse. Eventually, I came to realize that I was also bypassing a lot of my own pain and unresolved anger. And that's why I couldn't be with theirs. That's why I wasn't able to lead them into safety. In 2018, I ended up collapsing into a deep state of insecurity and inferiority that was triggered inside of a relationship I was in. It was overwhelming, and it brought up trauma that had been with me since I was 10 years old. And in that collapse, I began to see that there was this whole part of my soul that had never processed many of the painful things that I had been through, even though I've been doing work like this since 2000. That collapse actually took me into this long, very dark valley that I never expected to face nor wanted to. But it was in that darkness, it was in those overwhelming forces that I learned how to surrender even deeper. I began to accept and embrace some of the darkest things that a human being can carry within themselves. There's a lot of talk about shadow work today and a lot on social media, and yet most of it really still lives in the mental realm. It's concepts, it's reflections, cognitive exercises, and these are certainly helpful, but they're not going deep enough. You see, the deepest wounds that you carry, they don't live inside of your thoughts. They're not cognitive. The only way that they show up in the mind is as symptoms, overthinking, doubt, anxiety. But the real source is this emotional and somatic conflict or pain. But the mind is often reacting to what's happening deeper inside. In fact, your body sends 10 times more signals to the brain than your brain sends to the body. What that means is that what you feel and think may be coming from unresolved emotional or somatic pain that you haven't yet faced. It's not because of what you're thinking necessarily. The thoughts are more of an effect of a deeper cause. Even though I had been working in this space since the year 2000, I hadn't gone deep enough into the parts of myself that were still carrying embedded trauma. What started to change everything was first and foremost surrendering to the power of God. What I needed was access to a power that was greater than me, living at the very center of my being, which certainly humbled me greatly and then allowed me to open up to even more. And it was leaning into that power that finally led me into true healing, not through bypassing, but through fully integrating the parts of me that I had never been able to face. And ultimately, that was done through presence of others. I was really unable to go deep enough alone. Coming face to face with your darkest shadows and your most painful experiences may feel like the last thing that you want to do, and of course, that makes perfect sense. But I also found that it's the only path to true freedom. Even if you're on a spiritual path right now, it's very easy to end up using your practice as a way to avoid this level of work. I've discovered that many people, including myself at times in the past, are using beliefs and tools in religion and spiritual community as escape strategies. And those escape strategies often look really good and feel really good. But they're bypassing the root conditions that actually need to be faced in order for you to experience true wholeness and completeness within. So you might see it in love and light communities, in religious environments, or intellectual circles. These spaces often create clever ways to avoid the emotional and the somatic pain that they're afraid to face. And most of the time, they don't even know that they're doing it. It's literally human nature to want to avoid pain. So we can't fault ourselves or others for that. But if you're in a season where you feel like you're overwhelmed, lost, or in pain, and your usual strategies or support systems aren't helping, it's important that you know that it doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. What it actually means is that you're in a deeper process, one that's leading you to finally meet what has never been healed or integrated before, one that will help you realize that you are far greater than anything that you once believed or had happened to you that you thought was more powerful than you. This is what the dark night of the soul really is about. So I invite you to really be gentle with yourself, to welcome your emotions, to welcome your thoughts, even if they're contradictory. Everything inside of you is doing its best to survive, even if those survival strategies seem to conflict with one another. When you begin to welcome and honor all of it just as it is, something inside of you begins to relax. And when you're in the thick of it, what can really assist you is some deep breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You do this at least 3 times, and on the 4th breath, you hold the breath at the top. You relax your body, swallow your saliva, and just sit still for a few moments, holding the breath gently. And then you slowly start to exhale through a pinhole in your lips like this. And if you like, I'll demonstrate and you can follow me right now. This will help you immensely. I've got friends and clients of mine that are using this all the time. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good. Nose in, mouth out. Nose in, mouth out. Good. This 4th breath, nose in and hold at the top. Hold that breath in, relax the body, the shoulders, neck, chest, belly, face, just soften. And swallow your saliva, feel the saliva run to the belly. Relax, hold gently, just be. And then make your lips into a pinhole and slowly release the air. And allow yourself to rest for a moment. Notice the quality of your experience, how you feel, and even how much more calm your mind is. I invite you to practice this breath regularly, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or in a very low state. You see, I've walked through some very long, painful inner journeys over the last 26 years of consciously seeking to heal and to transform. And if you're in it right now, I just want to let you know you're not alone. If you feel like you need help, please feel free to reach out. And even if I'm not available, one of my friends, one of my coaches may be available to assist you. There are people here who know how to walk you through some of these dark situations. And if you feel called to that, it'll certainly accelerate the process and really help you get complete with what's incomplete inside of you. One of the hardest things that I ever had to do was to admit that I needed support, but when I finally let it in, it changed everything for me. I wouldn't have made it through without all the people who've held space for me, who've cared for me and supported me while I was embracing those dark parts of myself. There's no shame in needing help. It's actually quite courageous to ask for it. I know this can be especially hard for men, but even for women, reaching out can really feel terrifying depending on what you've been through in your relationships. But as I said, it's one of the most courageous and honorable choices that you can make. So sending love and blessings from my heart to yours. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you. Remember, you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There's pain and there's fear that simply needs to be met with your love and compassion. And with the support of others, it can certainly accelerate that process and amplify the presence of that love and compassion that will help you finally get complete with what has been buried and suppressed for many years and maybe affecting you throughout your life. So thank you again. I'll see you in the next video.